Hello, everyone. We should be live. We're here with Niall Moran of April 6 Proof. Thanks again, Niall, for taking the time to do this session. We're going to get started. I'm going to hand it over to you, Niall, if you want to give yourself an introduction and launch into the session.
Perfect. Thanks, Danny. So yeah, as the session, we're going to cover PR and social media. So I've put together a few slides to kind of steer that presentation. So I'll just share my screen now, and then you should have those on your screen. So just a bit of background about myself. I've been in public relations for 5 years across London and Dublin, and I've worked with firms in the technology space, financial services, sports, and kind of a wide range across the kind of B2B and B2C environment. So I should probably have enough experience to kind of answer most of your questions today, kind of on specific industries and things like that. Now, what actually are we going to cover today? Public relations is quite a kind of all-encompassing word, really, and it covers kind of any aspect of kind of from your business interaction with the public. So there's a lot to get through, but a lot of it will be top level, and then we can dive a little deeper into some other aspects. So the first half will be around messaging. And for those of you who watched Jess's presentation last week on Palm Press, she talked a lot about positioning, okay? And messaging is kind of the next natural stage from that, where you've carved out your niche in the market, you've decided what that niche is going to be. Now, how do I speak to people about it? Okay, and then the second half is going to be around PR and social media, and it'll be on 3 key sections. One will be owned, which is your own website and your blogs and all your messages around that. The second will be kind of social as part of the owned, which is kind of a massive part of public relations nowadays, because we're all able to disseminate content and build up such a big following quite quickly. And I know there was a couple of questions specifically on how to grow a following, going from kind of 1 to 5,000. So hopefully in the presentation as we go through, I'll cover that off. But if not, kind of do ping a question in, and I'll look to answer that as we go through as well. I know there's a couple of questions on for startups, is paid for promoted social worth it? So I'll look to cover that off as well. And again, any particular questions as we go through, just ping them through and I'll look to answer them. The last section will be around earned media, which is kind of your interaction with actual media outlets, and kind of whether that's broadcast media or radio or kind of those with on a national scale. So I'll look to cover those off. So first off, messaging. And as I said, this is following on from the positioning last week, where we discussed about having a niche in the market. Now, how do you communicate your value proposition? Now, I've worked with so many firms, big and small, who've done kind of really amazing stuff. You know, I've worked with entrepreneurs who've been invested in a business for 4 or 5 years, and that's all they have kind of dealt with on a day-to-day basis. Now, I think the key mistake there is that they've been so invested in the business that they kind of, the first kind of key thing that they want to do is tell everyone how brilliant it is. You know, they may have kind of, I've worked with people who've kind of gone about solving certain problems or kind of curing certain diseases. And really, these are amazing technologies, and people just want to say, okay, what are they? But actually, it's a lot easier then to, communicate how your customer uses you, not what you do. So don't tell people how great your product is. Don't tell people how great your service is. Tell them why that's good for them. And we'll discuss a little bit about that now in terms of 2 levels. Now, what we're going to be dealing with today really for messaging is awareness. So there's 2 different groups, okay? And what is messaging? Simply, it's kind of explain what you do and the impact, more importantly, that your product or service has on other people, what challenges it solves, okay? And as I said, it works in 2 stages. The main thing for a startup will be awareness messaging, okay? So awareness is telling everyone what your product or service does, how it helps people, okay? Brand marketing is more where it comes at a later stage, where you have a bigger brand like an Apple, a McDonald's, a Dell, and everyone knows what these companies do. So they need a wrapper. They need a campaign wrapper, such as a Think Different of Apple or a Reinvent of HP. So today, what we're going to be focused on is awareness messaging, because I think that's where everyone is today. Now, before I move on, building on from what I said about the impact that your product or service has, that isn't going to be the same for every single audience, okay? A lot of the time for your messaging, you'll have a number of different audience groups. Now, for a startup particular, could be your end user and your customer, and then it could be your investor group. And the things that you want to stress and the things that you want to focus on may be very different, and the language that you want to use may be very different when you're speaking to an investor than you are for an end customer. So the main thing is the value it has to that particular audience group, okay? This, as a bit of a proof point, is the key questions to ask, the kind of proof point to say, okay, is my messaging resonating? And, you know, do this with other people who are invested in the business, whether it's other people that you're working with, whether it's family, friends, everything. Get everyone to critique your messaging, because a lot of people will come at it from different stages, different perspectives. So what problem will this solve for my customer? Having a problem or highlighting a problem in the industry is always kind of the best way to go. If you can have a key stat or something like that that highlights, okay, there's this problem in the industry and I'm solving, that will bring people to your side. That will give you a level of credibility to say you have knowledge of the industry and this is what you're trying to solve. So I think then the next thing is, you know, how will it change their perspective? You know, people are dealing with a problem day to day. You're going to be your end audience, okay? How will it change their perspective and how will it change their day-to-day lives? And they will identify from there. Why would anyone want to read this message? That is a kind of a key proof point here. So, you know, do that sanity check after you've got the main messages on your website. Why would anyone want to read this? What do you take away? You know, get out a paper and pen and say, okay, what are the key things that I would take simply from just reading this? And it's a lot easier for someone else to do, because again, like I talked about, people who are really invested in their company and brand sometimes don't have the best view on this, because although they will have the best kind of understanding of what the company does, they have been invested for a long time and they will always jump to, okay, my product's amazing, this is what it does, rather than the actual impact of it. And again, same thing for the last thing there on the key questions. What is the most memorable thing about this messaging? Again, this is a proof point and something that you should all kind of take away. Review the content that's currently on your website or anything that's going into marketing assets, or again, we'll talk about later, going into the generated content, whether it's your blogs or whether it's your messages on social media, or whether it's actually, again, in your message that you're getting out to broadcast, whether you've got an interview secured with Sky News or Fox News or someone like that. You know, we're going to talk about a little bit later about, you know, key messages to get into those things and sound bites. But for now, let's just look at the 4 C's. And this is a proof point to kind of understand, right, is your message again resonating? So comprehension. Make sure your audience understands the main point. If you look at some of the best brands out there, they will have a very simple, very concise message, kind of summed up in a really small little soundbite. Again, something we'll talk about in a bit. But just make sure you have that, because that will feed into the rest of it. In terms of connection, this is what I talked about with the audience groups. It has to have value for each entire audience group. So again, this is not going to be the same for investors, which could be kind of your growth potential or something like that. This has to be tailored for each particular audience. Credibility. Having someone communicate the message or convey the message that has the qualifications necessary. When I talk about qualifications, I'll talk about kind of notoriety in the market, whether that's they've achieved something or brought a company to kind of success in that area, whether it's an academic or whether it's just somebody who's invested in the key business. You want someone who has a little bit of credibility. So if you can get a third-party view on the problem that your business is solving, that would be the way to go as well. the last thing with all of this, it must be easy for people to kind of share and sum up. So a lot of this, and a lot of the reason why you're doing communications, is to raise wider awareness. So if you're raising wider awareness with everybody, they have to be able to share it. So word of mouth, then, if they've read it in an article or seen a post on social media, how do they sum that up to other people in their network? It must be really simple. A lot of companies that I've worked with in the past, the main point of me going in there was looking at, okay, the message is quite convoluted and complex, and a lot of people aren't really getting what it is that you do. A lot of websites that you look on, like, you can read a website for 5 minutes and not necessarily understand what the business does. I think that needs to kind of come from that kind of the 4 C's. So first aspect here would be owned media. Now, owned media is anywhere where you can push that message that you've decided on. You've decided, all right, this is my message. This is where I want my messaging to sit. This is where I want my positioning to sit. Now, these are the messages, and this is how I explain on my own website. And now, in the last few years, your own media, which is your own channels, now encompass social media, which has obviously had a massive rise in the last kind of 5 to 10 years. So I think as a kind of caveat with all of this, okay, vanity likes are great. Vanity followers are great. When you're starting a business, it's nice to have a large following on social media, and it does add a level of credibility when you do look at that. But realistically, after that's kind of all blown over, you really want people, an audience that's going to engage with you. It's either going to buy your product or share your messages. So if you build up the wrong audience or devoting your time to sharing content on the wrong channel, that's not going to be kind of conducive to a lot of engagement and kind of your brand messaging resonating with the right people. So this is just a broad brush kind of summary of the key kind of channels and the kind of most popular channels of today and the demographic that's on each channel, because there is a lot of kind of differences with there. So if you're in a particular industry, LinkedIn can be far more popular. If you're a little bit more consumer facing, which is changing, Facebook has definitely come around to more of the B2B audience in recent years, and the algorithm for targeting is a lot stronger. Again, something we'll talk about a little bit further on. But have a look through this graph and just kind of decide which would be the most kind of relevant for my brand. Because again, when we're going through all this, if you don't have the right audience, you're not going to get engagement. You're not going to grow your following because nobody will actually see your posts. And the way social media has gone now is that if no one's engaging with your posts, it actually is a bit of a kind of downward spiral, because then they're not served up to anyone, because the Twitter or the Facebook algorithm kind of realizes, okay, this isn't really great content. This is going to get served down the bottom. So again, have a look at this afterwards when I send around the slides and just kind of have that kind of 2 minutes of saying, okay, well, am I investing my time on the right platform? We'll talk a little bit in a while about kind of content that and a couple of examples, content that really resonates on one but absolutely has no shares on the other. So next, now this, social media is everywhere nowadays. So there is a million things you can do. There's a million different tools you can use, and I'll share some examples afterwards, and I'll go through some in this. But it really is endless. But if I could kind of succinctly sum up things in a kind of a 5-point plan or a cheat sheet, these are the kind of key areas that I'd focus on. Audience analysis. Again, we'll go into detail on each one of these, but having the right audience and making sure that you're reaching out to the right audience, is absolutely key. And if you're not doing that, then it's an absolute waste of your time. And as entrepreneurs, as owners of business, I do know that you're not going to have that much time to devote to all of this if you don't have a resource. So we'll talk about a little bit about that, and that feeds in nicely to my next point, which is scheduled content, which again will save you time. generated content, which will be your blogs and kind of having that message out there. We'll talk about a little bit about that as well, and how to actually go about making sure that you're writing a blog people actually want to read about, and how we would kind of look at that. Video, it's just, again, as I talked about the shifting of algorithms on all social media, they serve up content that is being shared, and they should serve up video content and promote it. It's really stacked in favor of video, and I've got a couple of stats to just kind of contextualize for you. And imagery, I think the stat is posts are engaged with something like 313% more time than without images. So having images today is just it has to be done. You will rarely see a post from any kind of reputable company without imagery or branded assets. And it's nice, it can give you kind of your social media channels a bit of a consistent kind of feel and look, and people can get a sense of kind of what your brand stands for as well. So firstly, audience intelligence. Okay, this is how to not get kind of vanity likes, vanity followers, but let's still grow that following quite quickly. There was a question specifically on growing 1 to 5,000. This is how I would go about it. Okay, most industries, okay, there is a competitor or someone who's already amassed quite a large following. You know, they've done all the work for you in terms of kind of amassing that audience, and the amount of information you can get from just looking at that audience. And I'm going to show you specifically how you do that now. But again, this is following on from what I'm saying in this slide. You know, building up a following is dependent on sharing quality content. So you have to be having good stuff, and that's where the video and all of that sort of stuff comes in. But, you know, the people who want to share your content, you know, that's how you will engage with people. You know, you want to build up an audience of people who want to hear from you, are regular users. So you don't want a lot of people following you who don't post regularly or don't interact, because that your propensity to be shared by those guys really low. And again, we'll just look at how you would kind of see that without kind of manually looking to every single follower and asking, you know, whether they post. People who are likely to share your content, do they share kind of similar your competitors' content, or kind of content that's similar to that? And looking at it from the other way, what are they sharing? Okay, maybe I should have content that's more like that. And then this is all about networks. So do they have a large and relevant following to you? If someone has 250,000 followers, but if I look at the followers and none of them seem relevant to me, if they retweet, I might get a lot of kind of vanity impressions. And this is a consistent theme throughout what I'm saying here. Vanity impressions are great at the start, and you know, you like a bit of engagement, but actually they're not going to provide any business value. And if you do use social media correctly, it will be consistent with achieving your kind of business objectives, whether that's through funding or just wider awareness marketing, but it will actually do that. So first stage of identifying, you know, well, one, whose audience do we actually want? Okay. And you will have done that kind of before you ever kind of start to post on social media. But as I said about kind of getting, utilizing the people's following who have already amassed that following. Okay. So if you go to BuzzSumo, it's a tool that kind of, if you do a very broad brush search on, say, startups in London, okay, this is going to give you the main people to go to on that. BuzzSumo is a tool, it tracks influencers. And influencers is a word that we hear now all the time on social media. And it's basically the people with the largest following and the most relevant following. You know, the whole kind of B2C and almost B2B environments now as well are just built on people who have amassed that following, because now everyone's been on social media quite a while. So not a lot of people starting from scratch. And for you guys, as you start out, a lot of this work has already been done for you in amassing the correct audience. So if you look at influencers, they should give you kind of the best proof points. So again, as I said, let's just do a quick search, startup in London on BuzzSumo. And it brings up a couple of kind of the people who engage with the most, have great domain authority, big kind of Twitter following. A lot of people engage with them or reply to them. They got quite a lot of tweets. Again, that startup in London is a very broad brush search, but it's just an example. Obviously, for your industries, you would be doing something a lot more niche. So actually, you might even bring up even more relevant influences. And obviously, kind of the startup scene is quite like a large amount of people. Whereas if you were in a very specific field, you might have a far more niche and kind of concentrated following. So this is how I would go about it. There's a couple of influencers that are really relevant in the startup scene. Okay, then I would go on to follower wonk. Okay, which analyzes basically anything to do with any content shared, any kind of followers that a particular firm or handle has, and it will make a huge amount of inferences from that. It will give you the most common hashtags that are being used, and how to kind of piggyback on those. It will give you common followers, but this is where I'm looking at. So if you have three firms that are really relevant to your business that you've got from BuzzSumo, to put them into follower wonk, then if you then compare their followers, anyone who's following all three of them is very much a natural list for you to follow. So if you see what's on the screen now, obviously you can make inferences about each one of those, and you can go in and see what they are tweeting or sharing on LinkedIn. The amount of retweets they get, the best content, the average kind of amount of content per week. But actually, for now, let's just focus on followers of all three, which is a list of 600 people. If they follow three unrelated firms, and said unrelated because I've just picked them at random, but they're in the same industry, that 600 people are going to be really invested in the startup scene. Okay, and that follower wonk will literally give you a list to follow, so you can go in and follow. And they've quite, if you've already started up content sharing, and they can go on to your pages and see that, then that is going to you're going to be a lot more likely to get those guys to follow you back. Okay, and that's one way of going about it. Now, another way of kind of going about it is to make inferences about the audience, and that can give you the best hashtags, find out when these guys are posting. If someone's posting at 11, a particular demographic are posting at 11 a.m., that's when you want to be posting because you want to appeal to that demographic, then this is all stuff you have to know. And if you have this and you do this from the outset, it's going to be a lot more kind of easy to just share the right content and just minimize the amount of time you need to spend on this, but maximize the value you're going to get. So Startup Britain has 110,000 followers within the startup scene. Again, I'm just using the startup scene as just an example rather than going into any of your specific industries. But again, if anyone wants to get in touch afterwards, I'm happy to walk you through how to do a specific search for your industry. And as I said, the lists may even be more accurate for some of your sectors, because it might necessarily be that it's a much more niche kind of sector, and there are kind of only kind of a few influencers which are kind of feeding out from there. So we look at their followers, and we can see things like the follower count, and you can get specific lists here of their follower count. So if you only want to appeal to people who are following the startup scene but have a large following of like over 50,000, then you can go in and you can get a specific list of people to follow. You can export that list, or you can follow directly in the. I've just got a question here. So Yeah, okay, that's a great one. Yes, Stefano has just asked a question about, what is the cost of these tools? Um, so for follower wonk, actually, it's, you can get a lot of these on a free basis, but realistically, I think follower wonk, to get the type of information that you really want, you're going to need the pro option, which is about $20 a month. Okay, now if you are on a tight budget, because the follower wonk, like, it can analyze your day-to-day activity as well, but kind of upfront. If you literally wanted to just do this for a month and do $20 and then cancel your subscription, you can go in, you can get all of this info and export all of these lists, and you can at least have all of that relevant following. Obviously, if you want the information going forward on an ongoing basis, then you're going to have to kind of fork out a kind of a $20. I think from campaigns that I've been working on, if you had a $50 budget for tools, it would be more than enough. Okay, I'll again share some examples of tools after, so that Danny can share a kind of a top 50 afterwards with kind of relevant tools to use. But I genuinely think that if you have about a $50 budget, it is more than enough. And again, if you kind of sign up for a month and then kind of you can get all the information up front and then leave, because if you are on a tight budget, you don't really want an overhead of that kind of every month. But yeah, there are more when you grow, but at this stage there are more kind of tools that are a lot cheaper nowadays, because the market's a lot more competitive. But the bigger, more corporate kind of high-end tools, I genuinely think they look at mass amounts of data, but they don't do anything that you can't get really from these cheaper tools. And I'll look at this now. So then this, just going back to it, that tells you the most active hours of your following and everything like that. So again, it's just more insight that you can have. Again, this is a kind of a word cloud of what they're talking about and kind of the most relevant thing. So you can kind of surmise from a lot of this. These guys are in business and marketing, the guys who are following this, and kind of what they're going to be interested in. So again, this more specific if you're going into your own industry. What are they interested in? All of this kind of bio word cloud of these guys is hugely valuable. What you can also do with that tool is to search bios of anyone on Twitter. So if you want to get a list of, investors who have invested in a specific sector, you can search bios for keywords that are associated with that, and it will really give you a finite list of anyone who's in that space at all. Again, if you want to approach a particular topic or something that's relevant to your business, Keyhole is really good. Now that one's a little bit more expensive, but I've worked with firms on a huge budget, worked out firms on a really small budget, and basically a lot of these tools you can sign up for a month, get what you need, and then cancel your subscription. And this is the same here. Upfront, if you were to do an analysis of a particular topic in your industry, it will give you all the key hashtags. It will give you all the keywords, so the topics that are resonating most with people, the times, again, all like what the general discussion is around this. So it really is quite comprehensive, and it will give you kind of all you need to know about a topic, so that you can approach that when you're posting yourself. Again, so the follow on from Stefano's point about cost, these are the more expensive guys, the Pulsar and the Sysomos. They are built for really powerful search engines. I mean, if you're at as I said, like a big brand like a McDonald's, an Apple, you know, these guys are going to have mentions of, you know, into the hundreds of thousands per day. And to really quantify that and understand what people are talking about your brand, that's where these social listening tools get involved. But I've just included them to kind of let you know that they're out there, so you can have a good kind of sense. All right, these are out there for later down the line. But at the moment, I just think these are probably too powerful for where you guys are at. Now, scheduled content is really important, especially when you don't have someone in-house, which may be the case, you know, at a lot of startups. You're not going to have a devoted resource to this. It's kind of, sometimes it is on the fly, and you know, you want to minimize the amount of time you're actually spending on this stuff. So scheduling content ahead of time is immensely valuable for that. So again, there's a couple of tools here. So Crowdfire is one that I think is really good, okay? Because that actually suggests content for you to tweet or share as well. So if you go on to Crowdfire and you select a couple of keywords that are really relevant to your industry, then it will serve up. One, it will do the same job as Follower Wonk in terms of serving up a list of relevant followers, but also, so if you search startup here, it will suggest articles for you to share. So if you see in the bottom left-hand corner there, that would be an example, and you can literally press share and it will share direct to your profiles. That can, or you can schedule it for later on in the day. That is maybe not always the most shared content, but it will definitely keep you having a steady drumbeat of content the whole time, and making sure you're posting in the right areas, because all of these analysis tools will rank on the amount of times you've posted around a specific topic, and you'll rank higher in kind of people searching for you in that topic if you have posted on it. So again, suggest content that you can click at the source of a button, and at the very, you can literally go in and spend 10 minutes, and it will serve you up 10 articles, and you can say share on a Monday at 5 p.m. and you'll know what the best time is to share from your analysis on Follower Wonk. You know, share on Monday at 5 p.m., then share on Tuesday at 11 p.m. and you can do that with 10 throughout the week. And it really doesn't take very long. It's not like the best approach by any means. Obviously, as I will go through now, having your own generated content is much better. Having your own branded assets, again, something I'll cover off now in a minute, and having your own videos, much better. But this can be used in conjunction with other things to just keep you having that steady drumbeat, posting on relevant topics. If you see there just on the right hand side, it just pulled off a quick screenshot of some of the other functionalities. You can have a view of your fans, and their fans that that would be determined as people who follow you but you don't follow them back. Obviously have a view of recent unfollowers, recent followers, so you can get a general view of what's happening, why people have unfollowed you, why people have followed you. Okay, is there a particular industry that's just started following? Oh, that's because I just posted about this particular topic. That's kind of a good thing to have. Inactive following, as I said to you at the very start, if your followers are not posting, are not active, then it's you know, they're kind of useless in a sense. And you know, some people will go a year or two without posting and just have a view of those. So inactive following will give you a kind of a good list of those, so you can decide, okay, maybe these guys haven't posted for 6 months, maybe I kind of stop following them. Competitors, followers, again, it's a similar thing to what I was talking to you guys about for Follower Wonk at the start, but it will actually show you who your competitors' followers are and give you a ready-made list, and you can choose to follow as many of them as you can. I would do this really kind of in a small case-by-case basis. I wouldn't just go on and follow, you know, thousands of people. Although it might get you initial results, it's not the best way of going about things. And building up a kind of a smaller kind of following on a consistent basis will give you that 1 to 5,000 quicker, because if you've then reached out to a particular sector on all the most notable people from that, then you can post to that audience for the next kind of month or so, and they will interact, and it will naturally grow your following even more. Again, this is a couple of other examples. I'm happy to go through specifically how to schedule with anyone offline afterwards, but they're very simple to use, these tools. But I've just pulled off a couple of screenshots. I really like Hootsuite, and that is kind of one of the ones that's been around for the longest. It also gives you suggestions, content to share. They have a very good training Q&A kind of chatbot where you can ask about different capabilities and things. Buffer is really good actually for people scheduling video, and again I'll talk to you about that shortly. So again, it's just a wide variety of tools that you can use to set up posts throughout the week, because I think that is really the way you're going to get a lot kind of more kind of, you're going to get a lot more out of social, because you're not going to have to put the time in. So as I said to you, sharing content is great, but you want to share a level of content to put your own message out there, following off what we discussed at the start, and blogs and white papers are the way forward, and they can feed into your media relations, which again we'll discuss. But that kind of blogs and white papers are kind of the way forward on that. So your blogs, covering off stuff that's really relevant to your industry and offering insight that only you can offer, really. So a key way of going about, because there's so much content out there and everyone posts a blog, it really is good to do a little bit of research as to, what people actually want. So a couple of ways you can do this is endless tools, is kind of analyzing trends on Google to understand what people are searching for. So again, I've kept with a team of just startups, very broad brush, but if I put this into answerthepublic.com and put a very simple startups, again, just to emphasize that anything you would be putting in would probably be much more tailored, so it would be even kind of more ideas. You will see what people are searching for, and as I said to you at the start, whether it's a problem or a solution that you can offer, but if you can look to address the issues that people are searching for in your blogs, that is going to be the way that they're kind of most engaged with or most shared. So Answer the Public is a good way of doing this. Google Trends, these two are, just to go back to costs, these two are free. So always good to have kind of free tools that you can use to have kind of a good view on things. So this is what I said at the start about most shared content and picking your platform wisely. Okay. Now, the age-old example of cats on social media, because everyone engages with cats, but it's good to look and see, okay, well, this is a really good example of content that does well on certain platforms and doesn't on the other. And this is going back to BuzzSumo, which I spoke to you about at the start, for influencers. So this again is a free tool to a point. There's a free version of it, and then I think it's about $19 or so. So it's not. It is quite valuable for what you get. So if you put in a really kind of, kittens is just, there's so much on social media about it. But the only reason I've stuck to that one is if you look at the first one here, the first article, you will look at, watch these 4 kittens enjoy a street music song. If you look at the Facebook engagements on that, it's 210,000. Now, if cats are your thing or not, I don't know. But LinkedIn shares, there's none. So for something who has zero, it has 210,000 on one platform, has absolutely none on LinkedIn. And it's a very kind of clear example, content that mightn't be relevant to us, but it's a very clear example that, some platforms and some social media platforms are built for certain content and they're not on others. Now, again, you can do this. You can do a search to for your specific industry, and although the gap won't be that far, it will kind of allow you to see, okay, well, a lot of people are sharing content about something or subject matter that's relevant to my business on Twitter, but there isn't that much engagement on Google Plus or Pinterest or anything like that. So again, just informing the whole content and strategy all the way through. As I said to you, posts with branding and imagery. I mean, you can have imagery first off, so you always should have an image. Okay. But branded assets really they give it that extra look and feel, consistent feel to your own brand. And firstly, for images, there are so many tools out there on Creative Commons now. Pexels, again, I'll put a link to a couple of these that I haven't included afterwards, but Pexels, Unsplash, Pixabay, all of these, most of these are on Creative Commons that you don't, not only do you not have to credit the photographer, but also you can edit them yourself. So you can actually put a brand logo on them very easily and just make them look like your own kind of image. So again, I just think, why not? It's going to take you a little kind of amount of time to just do that, and it'll give them a consistent look and feel. And as I said, 313% I think is the engagement level you're going to see additional for images with posts. The second half is branded assets. Okay. Now, some of you might be familiar with these, but all the kind of major brands and all the good kind of social media campaigns have a consistent look and feel of whether that's pulling out quotes from your own content or insights from the industry or anything like that, or from an event that you hosted yourself, but just giving it that consistent look and feel, a little bit of a boilerplate around it. What kind of tools can you use? Canva, which some of you will be familiar with, but it's a very easy design tool. It's so accessible to just make quick assets with, and just kind of give it that look and feel. You can upload your brand fonts, you can upload your brand hex colors, which is kind of, if it's a very specific blue, you can upload that, and you can upload your own images and just kind of put a logo over them, and it will just give you that additional kind of consistent look and feel. As I said, Canva is free to a point where it kind of has additional functionality. I think it's about $12 a month after that, where on the pro version you can resize quickly per platform. And it gives you all the sizing for each platform there. So the exact sizing for LinkedIn, the exact sizing for Twitter, Facebook, like every single platform you can think of. And so you can do that with the pro version, but I mean, you can use the free one as well. And then Adobe Spark is kind of a halfway house between Canva, which is the kind of more accessible ones, and Adobe Photoshop, which you're going to need a little bit of training. Obviously, what we should be striving to hear for everyone is kind of the Photoshop end of things, the really professional one. But Spark is kind of a halfway house, and it allows you to do posts and videos. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. But Spark is really good because there's a lot of really cool templates in there. And it really does look quite professional in terms of your design. So again, something to check out. I'm happy to answer any specific questions on it afterwards. Video. Okay, so a lot of you might be thinking, okay, well, I don't have an in-house videographer, or I don't have my own camera, or that doesn't necessarily mean that video is off limits to you. The value of video now is completely, like, as I said, it's completely invaluable now, because look at these stats that are kind of well published on social media now. The way that we've kind of evolved as people who consume content has been all towards video, and the Facebook and Twitter and all the good social media algorithms have recognized that, and they serve up video content to your followers. I'll talk a little bit about why promoted activity is good, but a lot of organic activity, especially if it's not engaged with initially, will not be seen, and video is always served up ahead of it. So a couple of stats there that are quite good are, 1/3 of online activity spent watching video. Gives you a little bit of an age gap there. The 25 to 34, 40% more time watching video. So depending on your demographic, you can probably get a stat to see how valuable video is. But as well as that, the value of video in terms of actually conversions, whether that's search engine representation and getting you up the rankings, kind of, you see the stats there. But as well as that, when we talk about message, as we talked about at the start here, viewers retain 95% of a message when they watch it in video compared to 10% when reading it in text. It is kind of, it's kind of a no-brainer to do some video as well. Okay. Now, because you don't have a videographer or a camera, obviously it's nice. It's kind of nice to give your brand a public face of the founder and do a video with him. And kind of, you will need a camera to do that. But you can explain, you can do it and explain a video very easily without any of that. Just by using Adobe Spark that I talked to you about before, which is, I think it's roughly £10, kind of $15 type price per month. So again, not kind of inaccessible. And so what do you do with that? It kind of stitches all the video together. You can get free clips on things that are relevant to your business on Videezy, Pexels Video. There's a number of different sites now, all in the Creative Commons, where they allow you to not only use the video, but actually edit it and put your own kind of filters and branding on it. It's very simple to go onto Videezy or Pexels, download a few videos, put them together, and overlay some text on Adobe Spark. And you can get some free music from bensound.com. And there's, you know, a quick Google search will give you a number of different tools where you can get Creative Commons music. If you package that all together really easily, and I'm happy to, again, run through anything like that with anyone offline if you want to reach out to me afterwards. It's very easy to explain your value proposition when you have video and you have some cool music backing it up. It kind of just, it just gives you that extra layer. So again, it's not inaccessible for everyone to do video now. A lot of free tools out there. Okay. Measurement for social media is really important, as with the audience analysis, and actually in advance of you posting content, knowing that it's going to the right people. A good kind of validation or proof point afterwards is checking, you know, has it gone to the right people? Are people engaging with it? Is there a trend? Are people now coming into the summer engaging with a different type of content, or because of the news agenda, should I be on this issue? Measurement now is probably included with most of the social media channels. So LinkedIn does quite a detailed one, Facebook quite a detailed analytics, Twitter does its own internal. So they're all built into the platform, but they're quite easily to use. And there's a lot of Q&As on those, but it can tell you, you know, first off, how many engagements, new follows, all of that sort of stuff, to do kind of your own checking on that. But also it can tell you what content is most engaged with, or whether it's kind of ones with images or ones with videos, or a lot of platforms now can tell you whether actually images with people are more engaged with than images with products. You know, so just interesting information, because although you might read a lot of reports on what's the most engaged with content, you got to realize that not all of those are tailored to your industry. So if in your particular industry, it could be completely different. I've worked on campaigns where, you know, if you were to follow best practice, you'd be posting at, you know, between 12 and 2 in the day, or maybe when everyone is on lunch. But actually, you know, in a particular industry, I worked on a cybersecurity campaign and actually at 2 a.m. was the most kind of the best time for engagement. So again, it's very important to do stuff that is specific to your industry. Again, a couple of tools just showing you what you can go, and a lot of these have a free version. I'm not too sure the cost on Sprout Social, so look at that afterwards. But a lot of these do have free versions where you get a lot of the reports, and you can look at a lot of it internally, as in natively on the platform. A lot of the kind of paid for functions is around exporting reports. So that kind of when you're dealing in an agency and client facing, that's where they want the paid for options. But actually, if you're just doing it for your own business, you can do a lot of it on the platform. But you can add every specific channel that you have there, and it can give you kind of good graphs on kind of what's the most, what's kind of providing the most value to you, whether that's link clicks to your website. It depends very much. Obviously, all of this depends on your kind of business objective. Audience is again another kind of really good platform that allows you to kind of make inferences on what's the most engaged with content. But again, there's endless tools on these that you can use, but I've just pulled out two. There was a question specifically on paid social, and are they worth it? Is it worth doing for kind of startups? And I think yes, and I would say yes because for a few reasons really. It is cost effective, right? For a startup, say, if you have a very specific aim on kind of driving people to your website to, as a call to action, then to buy something, you can set up, and if you've again done the research on your audience at the start, you can target very specific people, and you can have a pay-per-click option where you don't pay if they don't come to your website. So if you're confident in your website and you're confident in your messaging, like we chatted about at the start, then why not do this? Because you can't really lose money on it, because if people are driving to your website, obviously, then, and you're confident in your website and how that people are kind of their buyer journey on there, then kind of it's a bit of a no-brainer there. It is kind of more cost effective than traditional advertising. I mean, traditional advertising kind of methods are gone through the roof now, so it's a lot more accessible for startups. And if you are to do any advertising, it does show you what people do like and engage with. So maybe if that's you're doing some marketing for an event that you're doing, and you're kind of bringing around kind of billboards and things like that. If something was engaged with on social media, whether it's the color or the kind of pictures, like it can inform your marketing content as much as anything as well. As I said, the way the algorithms are gone, obviously social media platforms are trying to make money as well. So they are seen ahead of organic posts. And if organic posts are not, so I just got a question in. So yeah, I think that's a good question. So Brian's just asking a question around kind of gathering followers. How much is that a measure of engagement, and how do you screen your results? I mean, I think realistically, I would do on a month-by-month basis a kind of an analysis for who has actually followed you. At this level now, I've looked at a lot of your social profiles, and it's still kind of in the hundreds for most of you. Some of you have broken into the thousands, but on a month-by-month basis at the moment, you're still at a level where you can actually do it. At the end of a month, you may have got a few hundred followers in that month, where you can actually look at individually who they are or where they are. But Twitter analytics will give you a good sense of, say for Twitter, for example, it all depends on the platform, but Twitter analytics will give you a really good sense of kind of, are these people engaging? And there is, on follower one, there's also a sentiment analysis, okay? And sentiment analysis will look at if posts are really sarcastic or anything like that. So any kind of running social media campaigns, there is always, and this is like for everything, but there is always like an ironic comment to a post, or, because, some people just don't have anything better to be doing. But you will see that through kind of Twitter analytics and follower rank in the sentiment analysis, where people who are posting a kind of ironic or sarcastic comment on your posts, they've done it before. They just go around a lot of kind of trolls, so to speak, and look at doing that for a number of kind of firms. So again, that's people you can screen out, and going back to Crowdfire to do that afterwards is something you can do. So just back now, yeah. So just back to the organic posts. Yeah, not always going to be seen. Kind of promoted social is kind of becoming a lot more kind of widespread. A lot more people, because it's a little bit accessible in terms of cost. A lot of people are kind of doing it. So I think only relying organic is probably a little bit limiting at this stage. But again, the social media platforms do rely on you having not done your research. So to make sure that you get value out of promoted posts, doing your research on the audience analysis platforms allows you to really target those lists. So for an example, with Twitter, you can literally, if you've pulled off an exact list of people, and it's not that hard to do that with follower rank, an exact list of, people who invest in blockchain solutions, or, you're going to have that exact list of people who are really relevant. So if you get any of those guys to your website, they're going to be, most likely to take action. So you can have a list like that, upload it to Twitter, and only pay for a pay-per-click model. And then you have to get people who are really relevant on your website. So it's all about having that level of kind of analysis at the start. So advanced targeting, that's just to say that you can get really granular with this. So a lot of things, going at it from the mindset of startups, a lot of events are attended. So you can go to, organic on the day, a lot of events have hashtags, but actually you can target people who are at the event based on a very specific postcode for, countries where postcodes are applying. So it really is down to the postcode. So you can go, if it's being held in a conference center, you can literally go and target that conference center and everyone in that conference center. So it's just the amount of things that you can do to really granularly target those job titles, keywords, geography. Again, this is all similar to your kind of market intelligence things that Johnny ran through last week. But kind of knowing who your business are and what their trends are, you can really get into granular detail on targeting. So that's kind of overview on social media. There's a lot to go through there. You could be there quite a while trying to kind of cover off everything. But again, happy to go through any specific aspect of this afterwards with anyone. If you have any questions, happy to have a call or go across via email. Earned media, which kind of encompasses everything on the kind of more traditional media outlet. When you think of the press, you think of your magazines, newspapers, to kind of news in the evening. That's kind of all kind of in earned media. Okay, and why earned media is important. Okay, it can help you with a lot of your kind of business objectives. The big thing is credibility, and with a qualifier as all of this. Okay, social media, everyone has their own social media profile, so everyone is pushing out their own messages now. So that does erode the credibility a little bit, because obviously a lot of people have self-serving messages. So I think and there are stats on this, but you know, people do trust the media a lot more. There is a level of credibility for that journalists aren't just going to sing your praises as a business if you don't, you know, solve a problem. So, you know, having that as an extra kind of level is always worth doing media as well, you know, and it does reach your target audience. It's still massive reach on kind of news outlets and the national papers every single day. There's huge audience there, and going into trade magazines as well. Again, I'll kind of go back and forth with this, but you know, help achieve your business goals in terms of investment and funding. There are specific magazines that that are kind of only distributed to investors. Most of you know them as the kind of trade magazines. You know, so you know that if you have coverage in there, then you're probably going to be read by a key investor. Okay, so to build awareness, partnerships, there's a number of different aims why you would do media, but kind of I'll just put them there as well. Again, just in terms of types of media. Again, you're talking about the nationals, like. Depending on what country you're in, there are kind of, you know, anywhere between 8 to 10 kind of papers that are distributed nationally with massive reach. And then there's also the broadcast media, your news outlets, and, you know, radio still has huge reach as well. And then, as I said, for more specific aims, where a lot of you guys will be hoping for kind of investment or funding or reaching out to specific customers who have a specific interest, trade magazines, any specific trade magazine is kind of where you would be kind of hoping to be. In terms of a media relations toolkit or tactics, they're kind of the main ones right there. So what is a press release, right? A lot of you will be familiar with this, but a press release basically is you announcing news, okay? Whether it's that you have got funding, or whether it's that you have acquired someone or made a partner, or they're the newsworthy ones. A lot of the time a press release can be also, we have an event coming up, but in terms of the press release that you would disseminate to media, so send to journalists because they might be interested in covering it, it would be the more newsworthy ones around a product that's launching that solves a particular issue, or something like that. A byline or a contributed article, that's the second one. Now, these are long lead articles which can be written by a CEO or founder of a business, okay? And this means that kind of nothing is off limits in terms of getting these types of coverage, okay? Because you can only give that perspective. You know, if you write a particular good article in a trade magazine, you know, that's for a specific audience, only you can give that perspective because only you have your product and service. Commentary, again, if you're in a particular industry and it's in the national media, or it's kind of being covered a lot on the news at the moment, you know, to give your opinion on it, you know, by sending comments to journalists on, okay, I think this was really good, whether it's new legislation that's coming in or anything like that, to give your opinion to it, journalists will like that as well, because they don't always want to hear from kind of the major players there as well. And the last thing is, you can go out and you can meet journalists and have a coffee. Most of these guys are happy to hear what you have to say. It's a bit of a two-way relationship in terms of if you can give them value and insight in the industry, because that's essentially what journalists are looking for, insight from people in the industry to write and demonstrate that point of view. So if you have a coffee with someone, with a journalist, and just tell them your perspective, they're more likely to kind of write about your brand anyway. If you do get kind of secure interest from broadcasters to kind of appear in front of the camera, there are a couple of things that you need to remember, okay? Know what you want to get across. Your messaging is so important. You're going to have 20, maybe 30 seconds on a Sky News or a Fox News, or, you know, that needs to be a clear soundbite, you know. You need to be able to sum up your product, because it will be edited down. They will do an hour of filming. I've been on shoots many times with clients, and they've done hours of filming, loads of really cool stuff. And it's edited down to, a 20, 30-second clip on the news, which is still massive reach. But if you haven't said the right things and given them that soundbite, you won't be able to get a kind of a good sense of that. And give them away using that information. So a call to action is always key. So I think the industry age-old one is to demonstrate that in a kind of a three-point plan is the watch. Okay, so you will have your key messages to start. So what does it do? Allows users to see time of the day accurately. It's portable and lightweight. Solves a problem from kind of in the old days kneeling a sundial or a clock. And then how does it relate to a problem they might always have? So users can ensure they're on time for appointments and meetings. Okay, so there are your three key messages to get across in your 20 seconds. Now, how do you contextualize them and just make them concise enough for a soundbite? Your very own portable timekeeper to ensure you're never late for the important things in life. And that just kind of ties everything in. So as an exercise after this, maybe look at your business. What are your three key messages that you would want? If you had three things to tell someone about your business, what would it be? And how can you put them into a one line? And then your call to action would be usually to buy or purchase something or get in touch. And it would be to that watches are available from retailers. In terms of timing for media, I think the general thing is to coincide it with a business milestone. When you have enough to really talk to journalists and see kind of where you can add value to their debate or the industry debate, and when you know what you want to achieve with media. Now, a lot of this will be awareness. You want awareness at the moment. You want people in a particular sector or group or society to know about your business first off. But actually, what are you trying to achieve with that? Whether it's specifically to get an investment or, to sell or to just have wider awareness. You want to have very specific objectives. And then the last thing to say is that, you should really incorporate your media activity and what you're saying to journalists with everything on your website, everything on your social media, everything that we talked about today should be consistent. With your newsletters, your emails, everything like that, everything should be consistent. Okay. And like include kind of potential pitches to journalists when you're showing to investors. Get as much information about what might be newsworthy from people in the industry, and you can provide that insight then. And that's kind of, I've covered quite a lot there today, so apologies if I didn't go into enough detail on anything specifically. But again, happy to pick it up afterwards with you kind of individually on anything that you might want a little bit more detail. But hopefully that gives you at least a sense of kind of, all right, these are the things that might need to be on my agenda when I come to communications and public relations and social media, and kind of these are the things I might need to know a little bit more about. So I don't see any more questions, but I'll just hand back to Danny then, if that's okay.
Thanks very much, Niall. That was a brilliant session, I felt. Very tactical and a lot of good takeaways for people to take away in terms of tools and everything like that. So thanks very much. If anybody does have any questions, Niall has given his email there, which you can share. And he said he passed on the slides as well. Also, Niall is on the Slack as well, so reach out to him if you have any questions. And we'll take it up from there. So once again, thanks very much, Niall. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks.